founders, it's Christy Bareijsza, and I'm your catalyst to finding her. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Finding Her, and you know who I am. I'm Christy Bareijsza, and don't forget, I am not a life coach. I am not a therapist. Hell, I'm not even a psychologist. I am just a woman in her 40s trying to figure all this shit the fuck out because it is not easy. And, you know, I will continue to make mistakes, and that's what keeps life interesting. So, you know, don't forget that these relatable stories that I'm going to be telling you are, you know, from my perspective. And names have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. So, as we always do, let's make a very long story short. And remember, what I am more than anything else is a catalyst for change. So, let's do it together, founders, and let's go on to the next step. Okay, founders, so in episode 3, we discussed something that I think is really tough for women to grasp their heads around, which is accountability. And a lot of times people fall into this victim mentality of, you know, not dealing with the reality of it all. And it's just easier to say, well, this happened to me because, not this happened to me because of A, B, C, D, and E that has led me to this point. So, you know, being able to take that step, being able to understand that life is not always about what happened to you, but rather maybe what you've done that led you to this point is just such a critical thing. So let's just go over a couple quick things that we discussed last week, and just as a, you know, friendly reminder. So the first thing was decluttering your mind and centering your focus, which I think is one of those things where you have to kind of look at that situation for what it is and where you are and where you need to go versus all the 9 million things that have happened that have led you here, or the mistakes that you've made, or not being able to forgive yourself, the fact that you have to start over, all of those things that become very chaotic in your mind. Just clearing that out and just focusing on the key points. Number 2 is choosing a professional direction and creating a roadmap to mold your success, which that is another thing, is this is what happened, this is where I am, how am I going to get there? And understanding that you're going to look at it from a point of view of saying, okay, this is the end result, and backtracking those steps to get where you need to be, which I think is really a different way of thinking versus doing it in a way where you're like, step A goes to step B to C to D. Sometimes you have to go from E to D. I always do this, C to B to A. So really kind of looking at it in a way where even if you have to write it down, and actually I suggest that you write it down, where you're understanding where those steps are that's going to lead you to the next step. Number 3, uncovering the tools your path requires, from education to skills to your resume, and creating networking opportunities, which understanding where you need to go and understanding what you need to get you there, which is always important. And in this day and age, it's great because there's so many resources that are out there that are free resources. They're not even paid resources that can allow you the tools, the networking, the ability to really get to those next steps. And also, you know, sometimes too, it's the support, which whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whatever the case is, whether it's financial. I mean, there's a lot of great SBA loans out there, a lot of, you know, women supported organizations that really help you. You just have to find them, and you have to ask for the help. Number 4, seeing the big picture and mitigating obstacles in advance. We like to call it forecasting, but it's one of those things where you have to look and say, okay, my ship is going to sail. How am I going to make sure that I'm going to plug all of those holes in that ship so when we put that in the water, it's going to float and it's going to go? Because if you start looking at things or not dealing with the reality of the situation, or looking at it in a way where it's not really the big picture, you're putting Band-Aids on bullet hole wounds, that's not going to be reality. The reality is really looking at that picture and saying, okay, this is what I need, this is where I need to get. And sometimes too, it doesn't always happen in a day. You know, everyone now is looking for instant gratification, and that is not what happens. Like, change doesn't happen overnight. Change is gradual, day by day by day. But as you start, you grow, and the next day it changes a little bit more. Then it changes more after that. And that's the great thing about life, and that's the great thing about working on yourself, is that you start that evolution where it's not something that's instant. It's something that is long and secure and sturdy and strong, and it helps you build your strength to get to the point where you need to get to, which is, I think, pretty fucking cool. Number 5, source and leverage resources through innovation. So work smarter, not harder. And that's really a critical point too, where you have to, things aren't handed to you. A lot of people get really lazy and they're just like, well, it's not in front of me, so I didn't see it. Sometimes you have to look for it. And that's the thing. You got to do the work, because if you're not going to do the work on yourself, no one else is going to do the work for you. And a lot of these changes need to take place within you, and you have to. Let me correct myself. A lot of these changes have to take place in you, and you have to be the driving force for those changes. So no one's going to do it. There's not a cure. There's not a magical potion. It is something that takes work, and you are worth that. You're worth that effort. You're worth that time. You're worth that energy. You're worth that full focus. And I believe in you. Founders, you got to believe in you. The next one is breaking the cycle of allowing failure to be an option and requiring friends and family to hold you to your deadlines. Now, it's a fine line, because every big growth that you have, there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, another 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. So it's a process. But it's also something that, a lot of people will fail once and they're just like, I failed, I'm not going to do this again. And you can't do that. So failure is part of it, because if everything was always right, or everything was always positive, or everything was always up moving and successful, you wouldn't appreciate those successes. Those failures are what builds that success. Those failures is what builds those lessons that allow you to grow as an individual, that allows you to grow as a person, as a mother, a daughter, a sister, a lover, a friend. There's so many different aspects of it that that failure brings. So failure isn't always something that's so negative. You have to just change your mindset to that. But also, too, as much as you are silencing the noise from friends and family that may want you to stay in those old habits, you do have those friends and family that are truly supporting you and cheering you on, and you need to have them help you be accountable, because life does get in the way. And with that, it's, we all do it. You get caught up, you get tired, you get this, you get that. You're betting on yourself. And when you bet on yourself, it's a sure win, because you're doing the work. But sometimes we need a little help. So when you have friends and family that help you kind of be accountable, and it's not always like you have to share your story or share, what you're doing. It's kind of like that workout situation where you have a workout partner, or you have someone that you can say, hey, you know what, I'm going to just text you to let you know that I'm going to class, or I'm going to let you know that I'm doing this, or that, I was really interested in taking this class, at such and such school. Well, that person comes back and say, hey, did you sign up for that class? No, I didn't yet, because life got in the way. This happened, that happened, whatever the case is. You need that person to say, you're going to stop, put everything down, you're going to sign up. Because this is important. This is important for you. This is important for your career. This is important for your passions. This is important for your life. Whatever the case is, that is going to be that kind of driving force that keeps you going, because, we're all not perfect. And we're all in a position where, we get tired. I get tired. It's one of those things where, you don't always want to do it, but it's got to get done. You're not going to allow it to go to the wayside, and neither are they. And the last one, again, is that reminder to remove the victim mentality, because it is something that is so easy to do. It's so common. It's almost a trend. And nobody's a victim here. And it's not sexy. And we're not even going to talk about it anymore because it's not happening. So point blank, period. So with that, we're going to dive into today's topic, which is one that can make people feel a bit overwhelming, which is development. And, I'm always going to start with my quote because I'm corny like that. So let me clear my throat. I always think of that song from the 90s, Let Me Clear My Throat. Anyway, so here we go. Ready for that quote. So what you hate most in others is usually what you hate most in yourself. So part of development is about building your self-esteem and being grounded. Because a lot of times, people will project onto others their own insecurities or their own fears or things that they feel as though are not up to par with who they feel their competition is. Which in essence, we all have our own path. So with competition, yes, competition is healthy. Competition is something that is a good thing because it will drive you to take the next steps. It will kind of create a timeline and things like that. But it's competing in a way that's healthy, that's not unhealthy. Sitting on social media and looking at, what other people are doing or what they're portraying to do is not really competition. It's the understanding of, running in a race. And you've got 5 people running and you all started at the same time and you're all doing the work to finish. And there's going to be a first place, second place, third place, fourth place. And with that, that's that healthy competition that keeps you motivated to get yourself to the next steps. So let's talk about development. So the first thing we want to talk about is setting yourself apart by positioning yourself as an industry leader. So as I've mentioned, I'm sure over and over again, my first love is dancing. And I have been dancing since I was 3 years old. I went to college. One of my degrees is in dance, which I'm still hearing about, 20-something years later from my parents about how they basically paid for a college degree for me to be a dancer and did nothing with it and then had to get my master's to get a real job. But anyway, I digress. But my favorite show growing up, especially in the 80s, was Fame. The original one, not the new movie, not the reboot and all that stuff. So I don't know if you remember, it took place in LaGuardia High School. And, remember my name, Fame. I love that show. So here's story time. As a child, I'd basically walk around the house. And I believe that I was Debbie Allen. So even when I looked at Fame, and I was probably 6 years old, I didn't want to be the students. I was the teacher. I was the tough, loving teacher, Lydia Grant, who walked around, taught dance class, and she had this stick. And there's a point to my story. Don't worry. It is a ballet stick. And basically, as younger generations are probably thinking, what the hell is a stick? Like a legit ballet stick. Now, what the stick actually did was not only could she tap the stick to keep the beat of the music, but it was also, if your feet were out of line, or your knees or your legs were out of line, she'd hit you with that stick and you'd straighten up. Or in the back, if you're slouching, you're going to stand up when that stick touches your back. And, it's one of those things that I guess they don't use anymore, but don't at me either, because it's not cruel. It's not crossing boundaries. It's just dance. And it just was the thing that she did. And it was kind of, you'll watch many YouTube videos and you'll see that stick, and it just, I don't know, it was the thing. I digress. So I was probably like 6 years old, and I had been dancing since I was 3 years old. And what I would do, because I was so obsessed with that show, is I would walk around with a golf umbrella, which was those big tall umbrellas, and I would start beating that umbrella on the floor like it was the stick. Now, mind you, in the 80s, your house is pretty much all carpet and, mustard color, brown carpet, I don't know, rust color, these ugly carpets that I don't even know why anybody thought these were trendy colors. But they were those, it was just tons of carpet. So I would go into the bathroom on the tile and I would bang the umbrella. And she had this quote. And it's just, to this day, it is still so prevalent because I don't know. So here I am, 6 years old, and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. And I don't know how my parents just didn't think I was absolutely crazy. And she would yell, "Your body remembers everything. You learn something once, and it's yours for life. But first, you have to become a dancer." Okay, it's relatable with dancing. Now, you may be hot stuff in Harlem, or you may have the best tutu collection in all the country, but it doesn't matter, and I don't have time for prima donnas. You want to become a dancer? You're going to have to work, and you're going to work your little tights off. You've got big dreams? You want fame? Well, fame costs. And right here is where you start paying in sweat. I want to see you sweat. And the better you are, the more sweat I'm going to demand. So if you ever had to fight for anything in your life, put your gloves on and get ready for round one. And mommy and daddy's little darlings better come out swinging. Point made. That it doesn't matter who you are. If you're trying to develop yourself and you think you're the best, there's always somebody better. You think you've got this corner, there's always somebody better. And that's what makes you so great, is looking at that competition, understanding that it's healthy, understanding that it takes work to be on top. But when you get there, it is so fucking satisfying. And it's about, and what creates those stories and what creates those passions and what creates that creativity is that road all the way up to the top of the hill. And, Lydia Grant, a.k.a. Debbie Allen, said it best. And to me, even though that's a dance-related term, it still sticks out in my mind. And you can Google it like that, and it's still so relevant to where we are 40 years later. And to me, it's inspiring because you understand what competition is about. Everyone in the room might be that best person in town, but how are you going to be better? And you might be better than some of those people in the room. That means you got to work harder. That doesn't mean you stop working and make it easy. So I love it. It is what it is. And, a related story prior to the pandemic, I actually got to meet Debbie Allen. And, she was hosting these public dance classes in Beverly Hills. And I was just, I've met a lot of celebrities. There's very few people I get starstruck for. And there's random reasons to why I do, which is kind of corny, but it is what it is. But to me, she has always been such a powerhouse, and she's a living inspiration where she has built herself a career, an extremely successful career in an industry that is very short-lived. And she's someone that you really, I'm not going to say she's underrated in the sense, but most people don't realize the glass ceilings that she's broken in industries that were unheard of, and for women and, minority women. Like, there's just different levels of things that she would just break over and over and over again, and doing it in a way that's so humble, that's so silent, and just so, the woman is a class act. And this is like but it's one of those things that it makes me respect her so much more because of the way that she handled it and the way that she continued to give back. So as she was competing, and she didn't always get what she wanted to, like all of us. You don't always win all the time. And there were some setbacks. But with that, it made her stronger. It made her more passionate. It made her give back to others that helped her along the way or needed help along the way. And it speaks volumes to her character. And I actually got to meet her. And now, see, I'm so corny when I do this. And I actually had her, this is how much I like somebody. I actually had her sign an album. So I went to the class, and I walked up, so corny, with what's the matter with me? With the Fame album, which, younger generations, it's a record, a 33. And I had her sign it. And she looked at me and her eyes welled up. So then my eyes welled up, like I'm doing now, which is so crazy. And hugged me. And didn't have to say much more than that. And it's so weird that I'm getting upset about this. It's so stupid. But it shows from a woman to a woman standpoint, they understand the journey and understand where you're going to be. This is so weird. And they understand where you're going to be and where you're going. And understanding without saying anything. Oh, my God. I'm totally getting my period. They're understanding that, I understand your journey. I respect your journey. And that's about development. So I have to stop doing this. But like I said, there's certain people that make me feel like it is who it is. And we can start a whole Debbie Allen fan club because clearly I should be the president of it. But anyway, so that's my story. I don't know why I'm so emotional, but here we are. But understanding that you will probably never forget this story in my entire life, nor will I, and I'll probably live this down and it'll end up becoming a meme. But that being said, she's a pretty fucking cool lady and someone that you need to look up to and someone that you should really do some research on as far as with it coming to developing yourself, fighting the odds, understanding who you are, as well as understanding where you are, where you need to go. And once you get there, how you also need to look back and take care of that too. So that was a very long story. But also with the competition, understanding what makes you different. Sometimes there's a little bit of special. Sometimes there's a little bit of difference with that. But you can't just ride off of that. You really have to do things in a way that makes you memorable. And that's the most important thing. What makes you different? And it's not necessarily about, oh, I wore my hair this way, or I did that, or I wore this outfit, or I created something that's physical. That difference, that impact that you leave on people is something that's emotional, that's spiritual, that's soulful. And that's about where we are with understanding how to be yourself, be authentic with yourself. And that kind of goes into learning those steps that we're talking about is forgiveness and accountability and starting over and understanding who you are as a person. And that's what makes you different because you start becoming really comfortable in your own skin. And people can see that. They can energetically feel that. And that's super, super important, as well as doing the work and being there and setting yourself apart as you're developing yourself and really doing the work of understanding how, why, where, when, all the skills that you need to be, at the point where you are developing yourself to whatever next step or whatever journey that you're taking. Stop giving a shit about what others think or those negative thoughts. I mean, listen, I am the first person to be like, not give a shit about what people, I don't care what people think. Like I said, I'll be a meme next week and it's fine. I'll deal with it. I'll own it. But it's also one of those things too of getting out of your own head with negative thoughts, like the what ifs. What if, and I am queen of that. That's what I am queen of. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this works this way? What if it goes that way? You just have to trust the process and trust in yourself. And if you trust in yourself, you'll be more apt to kind of look and maneuver through what you need to do as far as like you need to maneuver through that doubt versus worrying about that. And who cares what people say? It's not their goddamn business. And that's the thing. And it's like you've got your supportive crew that love you unconditionally, that are your ride or die, but it's also those people that will have a comment about everything. And they don't want to see you win. So those that don't want it, don't even worry about what they say and be like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh, you want to sit? Cool. Oh, really? Awesome. Thanks. And don't move in silence. And that's the best way to do it, especially when you're developing yourself. So you want to be clear with your intentions and goals. So basically what you want to do is make sure that you are writing down where you want to go, where you are and where you need to be. Because sometimes we get scattered, or a lot of times that'll happen is I'll start thinking about an end goal and then I'll think about 9 million other things that are happening there. It's like I need to know where that end point is and kind of look backwards and say, okay, this is my goal. This is where I need to be. This is what I am trying to do. And that'll help you understand and like stick to that. And don't start sticking to all these other pieces. You want to stick to that main one. And then you'll kind of have a better idea of, you know, the next steps that you have to take or things that you need to do. And as you're going along in that process, you're also going to see that the step that you may be taking or this direction might need to go to this direction. You might have to redirect yourself here or there, which is perfectly fine. And that's fine. Or you'll go down 3 steps that way and you realize there's, you know, you thought that was the final step. And then there's a few more steps that you need to take, or there's another door that you have to go through, which is great because it's going to just keep expanding your development, expanding your learning, expanding who you are. And that's part of the process. And that's a great process to be. It's a great road to be on. And it's a great process to take because you're open to continuing the learning, because learning is something that's continual. It just doesn't stop. Like we don't wake up one day and just stop learning or stop educating or just stop growing or stop any of that stuff. Like you continue to do that. So just understanding that, but keeping that focus on that main goal of what you need to do, whether it's finding a job or, you know, moving out or, you know, finding a new home or, you know, learning a new trade, whatever the case is, this is that goal, whatever it is. And you just need to continue to focus directly on that. Because with competition, you know, social media is right now, it's a blessing and it's a curse, because what's been happening is it's so repetitive now. Like the focus and the trends now are like, okay, we're going to do a dance routine. And then you're watching, like you could scroll and see that same routine and people are doing over and over and over and over and over and over. And like, it's not original. Maybe the first time someone did it was original, but the thousands and thousands or millions of times it's repeated, it's not. And you know, what's happening with this is it's forcing people to feel as though they shouldn't be original. And that's the opposite. You know, what makes you special is you are the only person that is you. You are the only person that can be you, and you can't forget that. You know, you don't want to be someone else. You want to be authentically yourself. And show that to people, because that is going to set you apart with the competition, because you will be able to be who you are. And you know what? Sometimes people don't like it. And it's okay. Too fucking bad. They don't like it. So what? Right? A lot of people feel like they need to be accepted. You know, you don't like me? It's okay. I'm good with that. I don't have to like everybody. And that's the great thing about this, you know, this world. It's like you don't have to love everything, but you are who you are, and that's respectable, and that's the most important thing. And, you know, with competition, you want to always have all your ducks in a row. And you know, like I said, there's some people that look at this fake it till you make it thing. There's a difference between believing and doing the work and just faking it. Because if you are faking it, it's going to come out so easy. It's going to be so obvious, and it's going to be something that is just going to, you know, even if you got the job or even whatever you're competing for, you won, it's not sustainable. Faking it isn't sustainable. Doing the work, you know, educating yourself, you know, giving yourself the skills, that's what's going to get you to where you are. And with that, using what you can to get through the door. Which I've always said, listen, you know, if there's women-centric grants, if there's different things that allow me to have that upper hand, I will use them. I'm not beneath that. I am not, if there's an advantage, I will definitely take it. But when I get there, I better fucking bring it. And that's the biggest thing. I'll get in that door, but once I'm in that door, I already knew I was the best. You might have not known I was the best one there, but I knew it, but I used what I could to get there. And once I got there, then you're like, thank God you're here. And that's always where you want to be, because you don't ever want to be like, oh, we let you in, we did you a favor, oh, you got in because of default. No, I got in, you may have thought it was default, you just didn't realize I was the best one. And that's the most important lesson that you could learn. And, and you do the work and you back yourself up. And trust me, you'll thank me later for that. So the second thing is, which was a really long number one, is creating the ideal resume or business plan or professional profile. So why I say those three things is depending on what you want to do, because everybody's path is different, everybody's road is different, everybody's starting over is different. So whether you're going back into the workforce, maybe you're forced to be in the workforce, maybe you're an empty nester and you haven't had a job in 20 years, you raised your kids, maybe you got divorced and you can't afford to be on your own, and you need a job or you need a second job or you need to go back to work, you want to start your own business and you've worked in corporate for years and you feel like it's just time for you to expand in another direction. There's so many different roads that you can take. Having that correct and right supporting documentation is really what's going to propel you to the next level. So, utilizing your resources, like from LinkedIn to updating your resume to, working with freelancers on Fiverr, there's so many specialists out there that are affordable. There's free resources, but there's also, a lot of great affordable resources too that really can help you and support you in those goals of what is out there. And also too, the great thing about social media, like I said, is a blessing and a curse, is you can take, you can Google whatever your direction is, if it's a career, if it's a business, and you can go and Google what others are doing, not to copy, not to plagiarize, not to replicate, but understand the pros, the cons. You can see, okay, what's working, what's successful, what's not successful. And it allows you to have more of a litmus test of what you need to do to kind of customize, your image or your supporting documentation or your website or, the tools that you need to get to those next steps. And even too, listen, we're at a time in life too where, if you can't afford to do photos, you can even use AI and have an AI photo done and have these beautiful professionally done resume photos. And listen, it's our biggest secret. Nobody needs to know. And that's the great thing. Like, you couldn't do that in the 70s and the 80s, but now we can. And there's ways to do stuff that allow a freshness, a professionalism. It's just about, once again, doing the work, doing the research, and, keeping your content refreshed. If you haven't looked at your resume in a few years, refresh that. Change some words around. Update the skill set. Understand that there's certain keywords that are going to get you the attention of others more than what, the old resume might have not. Reach out to people. It's a crazy thing. If you ask someone for help, they'll probably help you. And especially people that I'm sure there's so many times that you have helped them over and over and over again, not even realizing that you did, and you're at a need or a time in your life where you might need some assistance. You know what? It doesn't hurt to ask. And listen, I am the pot calling the kettle black. I know I hate asking because I am also someone that I have no problem giving, but it's hard for me to ask for help. Because I get stubborn, I want to do it all myself. And it's not because of any other reason than I don't want to bother people. And I feel like it's a bother. And I've learned it's not a bother. And sometimes I get a little embarrassed or shy to ask. But I understand when I have, and the responses that I have received from people I've asked to help me, I'll start crying again. It's the kindness. It's the kindness of, you've always done this for me? Absolutely. Like, it's never been a no. And that's pretty fucking cool. And and I'm sure that all of you out there that are listening about this, founders, is thinking about the same thing and going, okay. And it's not a tit for tat. It's a, yeah, I've paid it forward so many times and I've needed some help, and now I have the opportunity to have some people help back. And that's, that's really cool. And, a great story that I have is during the pandemic, especially for my business, I had a lot of downtime. So having that downtime, I was in a situation where I like to keep busy, because if I don't, I tend to spiral, and I start thinking and hyperanalyzing and just getting 100% in my own way. Like I said, I make mistakes and continue to make mistakes, and I'm okay with that, and that's part of life. So what I started doing is reaching out to different industry magazines and blogs and publications to say, hey, I'll write for free, or hey, can I trade some press, or can I do something? Is there anything that I can do that can get my name out there, help with the business, keep me busy, keep my mind going, expand in my research? And, I did that for a bunch of different publications, and it was great because it really built, while I had the time to do it, it built a relationship that I didn't have previously and have continued to keep up. And even to the point where in 2021, one of those publications turned around and honored me as an Entrepreneur of the Year, which I wasn't expecting. It was amazing. It was one of those things that was such an honor. It was, here I am asking them for help, and they're looking at me saying, you know what, we appreciate you. We see what you're doing, and we recognize it. And you never know who's watching, and you never know who's cheering you on and who's supporting you and things like that. And when you pay it forward and you do right by others and do that, when you need that help back, it's there. And that's, that's a really great lesson to have, is when you're trying to hone in and get that feedback from people, like, maybe we need to change this, or maybe, and being realistic about your resume and your image, and, cleaning up your social media, because there's so many things now that kind of lead into number 3, which is understanding how to present yourself in interviews and meetings. There's just, perception is reality, unfortunately. And for me, perception is really reality, because I sell an intangible service in my real job, producing events where they're not going to know if I'm really good at what I do unless they've experienced one of my events, or have been through a really bad event planner, because they do exist out there, and start working with me and realize that there's a difference, or have tried to do it themselves and completely have hit a wall, and they're like, oh my God, and I come in there and they're like, this is the difference. Because it's not like I'm selling a car. It's not like they can touch it, drive it, do all that stuff, walk away with it. It's something that they don't realize the service and the value until there's a situation that requires them to understand it. So for me, my social media, my presentation, how I look, how I speak, how I dress, these are things that are going to relay my services over to what I do. So there's a big difference between being confident in doing your research and understanding the competition versus being egotistical, cocky, thinking you're the best. And it's that fine line of knowing your value and your worth and portraying it that way, versus kind of all talk and no action, or big game and big noise. And that's the thing too. What I've always been told about myself is that I don't have to sell my services. They know in a good 2 to 3 minutes that I know what the fuck I'm doing. And part of it is, yes, I've been doing this for 25 years. And in 25 years, I've learned a lot of lessons, and I've been in positions where I've been able to grow. But listen, I've made mistakes. I've fucked shit up, but I've never fucked it up twice. And that's the difference, is learning those lessons, but also continue to educate myself, building my presence in the community, writing articles, understanding, teaching, giving back to students that are becoming event professionals, doing all those things that also keep me on my toes of really understanding what is needed as well as knowing what the client needs. And, that's something that I'm able to do, but that comes with confidence, and that comes with having a background of understanding what I'm doing and knowing that I am good at what I do. Not saying that I can't be better. I can always be better, but pretty damn good. But also, too, part of it is, when you speak to somebody and not keep saying, like I do, it's having the right grammar, speaking clearly, holding your head up high, engaging the audience, and having eye contact. You have to show that you're confident, and you have to show that they can trust you in whatever capacity that you're doing it, whether it's an interview, whether it's you're selling a service, whether it's, trying to expand and getting into an educational program, whatever the case is, however you're developing yourself, you got to walk in there, head held high, look people square in the eye, have a conversation with them. And that's okay, And listen, I'm my biggest thing is I do curse, but I also give disclaimers that this is who I am. So I'm not right for everybody, but I'm also good at what I do. So it depends, sometimes it's a compromise that this is what you get. And most of my clients that I have are long-term clients, and they understand, and they're thoroughly entertained by it because they know what I'm doing, where I'm at, and also the pressures that come with my position. But, but it's also having that confidence to be truly who you are in a respectful manner. So number 4, uncovering job and sales opportunities to open additional doors. So here's a little story I have. As we said, Jamie went for an interview, and Jamie just wanted a full-time job, and that was it. Did multiple interviews, multiple conversations, presentations, did a wonderful job. They absolutely adored her. Next thing they said to her is, sorry, we don't have a budget anymore for a full-time position, but thank you for all the work that you've done. Thank you for your time, and we can't afford you. Now, Jamie's first, response would be like, well, I want a full-time job, and now I'm just not going to get that job, and all the work that was done was completely a waste. My response is, turn around and pitch a contracting opportunity. Turn around and pitch it in a different capacity. Meaning, okay, you really liked me. You like what I have to do. Okay, you can't afford me. What can you afford? Start another conversation, because you never know where that conversation is going to lead to. Where they might say, hey, you wanted $15,000 a month. We only have 10. And with $15,000 a month, we also have to pay you health benefits. We have to do this and this. Well, great. If I'm a contractor, I'll contract with you for 3 months at $10,000 a month with a right. Now, if I prove my worth, prove your value, we're going into new budgets in the upcoming year. Now, we will create a relationship where we will sit down and rediscuss that contract in 3 months and move forward with what we, can agree to, which might be that $15,000 with the full benefits, whatever the case is. The bottom line, it gets you in the door. And if it gets you in that door, it gets you in that door for other opportunities, whether it's just that opportunity and you lead and you meet other people and you're able to network with people or network with different opportunities. They turn around and say, oh my God, this person is so resourceful and so amazing. We can't have them lose, and turn around and say, hey, we're not going to offer you $15,000. We're going to offer you $20,000 a month come, 3 months from now, because we cannot lose you. Like, you don't know what the possibilities are. And not knowing and keeping an open mind and presenting things to people in a different way can sometimes trigger conversations and trigger a different outcome that might be far superior than what you thought your initial outcome was. So always keep that in mind. And also, you got to trust your gut. Because sometimes, too, you'll go through, and even, on the negative side of a scenario like that, sometimes you'll do a pitch, and they'll say, thank you, and they take your pitch. So also protecting yourself, where if you do a pitch, making sure that you're protecting your ideas or protecting your concepts. Because a lot of times I've had that happen before, where I've pitched to companies, and they'll say, thank you so much, but we can't afford this or can't do this. Or, oh, we're not hiring. And the next thing you know, they're doing that event internally that I had pitched. Now, what becomes challenging about that, especially at least for my industry and most industries is that I could pitch an idea and say the theme color is blue. Even though it's my concept, it's proprietary, it's confidential, all those big words, if they change that event concept from blue to green, it's no longer my concept, which a lot of these big companies know. So unfortunately, you have to kind of have that fine line of balance of what you're giving away for free is you're proving your worth, you're proving that you can do the job, but also in a way that you're not giving away all of your ideas and your talents, because that can also happen too. So you kind of have to trust your gut in this situation. And if you feel like there's more, or your gut's telling you that there's another opportunity here, or there's a relationship being built, it might not be that counter conversation, or it could be 3 months from now reaching out again and saying, hey, it was great to meet you. It was great to see you. Let's go grab a drink. Let's go grab coffee. Let's go grab lunch. Building those relationships where that person might be at another company at that point, or be there and an opportunity comes up where it's like, hey, we were going to use you for this opportunity. Unfortunately, that job is no longer, hiring. We want to use you for this opportunity, and this is a different one. Like, there's so many things that can happen, which are just truly, truly amazing. You just have to look for them and be open to them, because so many people get set in their ways. And even on the receiving party, a lot of times they will look at something and say, okay, this is what I need. This is what it is. And if you don't fit the mold, we don't want it. Sometimes they have to understand that mold can be molded. I know it's corny, but molded in a way like, it's clay, and it can be kind of shifted to make something work where they thought it only looked that way, but it now looks in a different way, and it's far more successful. And also, a lot of younger generations don't do this, and I'm going to say it directly to you. Pick up the phone and talk to people, okay? Don't email. Don't text. Don't anything. Have a conversation with someone, because you will be amazed how much more valuable it is and how much more valuable you are as an individual when they realize this person has a voice, they have a tone, they have a personality, a sense of humor, a skill set, a je ne sais quoi, that they're not going to read on text. They're not going to read on email. And relationships are built by interacting and communication. Yes, after you meet that person, you can obviously email and text and things like that once you've built that relationship. But that initial relationship, I can't stress how important it is to have a face-to-face, in-person conversation. It is so valuable, because that's what builds those relationships. That's what creates those memories. That's what creates that situation that sticks out in their mind that makes you different than everybody else. So I know social anxiety, this, that, and don't at me with that. This is life. And if you want to make a difference and you want to make a stand and you want to set an impression on someone, you're not going to do it online. You're going to do it face-to-face. So don't forget that. Number 5, building new professional habits to create positive outcomes. Get out of your own way, okay? So I am the grammar police. As much as I curse, I am the grammar police. I am the spelling police. I am the professional tone police, okay? I have a big pet peeve, especially with unsolicited emails, when they're like, hey, you, blah, 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 blah. Who the fuck are you talking to? You're asking me for business, and you're not even addressing me in a way that's professional or addressing me in a way that's respectful. I'm not fucking calling you. I'm not even responding to you. And that is something that I don't know who said this was okay, or generationally, this is the new thing to do. But people have to understand, you founders have to understand that even though there's different generations and different perspectives, there's also people from different walks of life. And it's not, we can't just blanket it. I always, take the most respectful path first. because that's what I expect people to do for me, and that's what I do for people. So, yes, dear has become antiquated, but it's hello, name and name. Hi, name and name. How are you? Good morning, name. Whatever the case is, kind regards, yours truly. Even sincerely, listen, sincerely's better than nothing at all. And signing it with your name, because it is something that's showing that this is not a blast. This is not a just, random email. You are actually writing to that person, which is going to catch their attention so much more than being in a situation where you're just like, hey, what's up? Use my services. No. How about that? Delete. Now, if they said, hey, Christy, blah, 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 I've, reviewed this, or I've, not even, hey, Christy, let me go back. Hi, Christy, how are you? I understand you run red carpet events, but whatever the case is, understanding that you've done the research and you're respecting me and what I'm doing, it's going to grab my attention so much more than you trying to be slick. Or spelling errors. If I see a spelling error, automatic delete. I am not even paying attention. Grammatical error, delete. Because if you're not paying attention to detail, to me, that's something that all the vendors that I use or all the partners that I work with, I'm in a very detail-oriented world, as well as I'm in a world, like I said, that's an intangible service, and perception is reality. And if I'm not working with people who have the utmost respect and professionalism, it's a reflection on me. So I won't even look at a vendor for that. And what most people don't realize, and not everybody does this, but I do this, is if I do look at an email, even if I don't have a service, like a need for that service, I will still review their website, kind of catalog it in my mind, and also keep it in a file. Because I might not need something now, but this person has put themselves in a position where I'm like, okay, they've spoken to me in a way that caught my attention. They have a good service from, I haven't vet them yet, but from an outside perspective, their presentation was done well. It's potentially something that I can use or need. I will file them because I never know. 6 months, 2 months, 4 days, 2 hours later, I might not have a need for it. And if I do have a need for it, then I have that accessibility and can look at vetting that relationship and building potential business. And that's something that when you're looking for a job, or you're starting a career and you're building your business, or you're trying to get ahead and trying to get in front of people, it's creating that lasting impression. And how do you do that in a way that people are going to pay attention to you? So yes, obviously always having conversations, if you have that opportunity to do that. But if you don't, and your initial first touch is email or text message or whatever the case is, doing it in a way that's still going to grasp their attention in the best way that you can. And also understanding that it usually takes about 7 touch points before someone pays attention to anything, which sounds really excessive. So, but it's statistical. So at this point, whether you've connected with them on LinkedIn, whether you've connected with them on a social media platform, whether you've sent an email, whether you've sent a follow-up email, but sending follow-up emails in a way that, my biggest pet peeve on that too is, I know you're busy and I don't know why you didn't answer my email. Why the fuck do I have to answer you? I don't owe you shit. Why do I have to answer any of your emails that you sent to me unsolicited? Please enlighten me. And honestly, when I have more time on my hands, I've responded that way and say, please enlighten me. And I sound like a bitch, but please enlighten me why, just because you've emailed me, I have to answer you. I don't have to do shit. You need something from me. So it's remaining humble, remaining professional, remaining respectful, getting to the point, because nobody's going to read a fucking novel. And I've made that mistake too. Obviously, you can clearly tell I'm long-winded. I will make that mistake of writing a novel, and I've learned to use, my words more wisely and strategically to get to the fucking point. But when they say that, I know you, don't you have time for me? No, I don't have time for, but the thing is, just to expect that of people is really not okay. But understanding that you do need 7 touch points, but being strategic, creative, and innovative with those touch points. Because you could send an email out and then maybe you do a blast of like your portfolio or a cool concept that happened or a case study where that's a second touch point. Then, connecting with them on LinkedIn, but not selling them anything. Just connect with them. I have gotten clients by just connecting with LinkedIn and saying nothing. Because a lot of times on LinkedIn, that'll happen too, where they'll connect with you and then it's sell. It's like, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's like me. And it sets off the wrong impression. By just connecting, I'm like, we're just connecting. If you check me out, great. If you don't, great. But if you need me, I'm here hanging out in your connections. And it's worked because it's setting off a respectful confidence that lets people know you're there, but you're not shoving anything down their throat. So that's really, really important that you find that fine balance. And also to cleaning up your social media and your online presence. People think that there is a difference. And what I do in my personal life is not my professional life. There was actually, and I sent a note, and she actually never responded to me, a big TikTok person, talking about how a client, had this misunderstanding and made a comment about her social media. And she's like, well, I let her follow me on social media, even though I'm public and da. Listen, that social media is your brand. That is you. That is your business. Even if you work for a corporation, that is still your business. That is everything that is around you. And people try to think that you can disseminate the two and have basically a separate personal life and professional life. No, absolutely not. That is one in the same. And even if it's private, even if it's this, whatever the case is, it is one in the same. And you're going to start seeing now a lot of companies are even putting clauses in their contracts that if something is said on social media, they can have the right to terminate you without reason, they have a reason, but without defining any other thing other than they didn't like what they saw, which sounds a little bit communistic and it sounds a bit, rough, but it's being smart and understanding how to maneuver through the system. Because to be honest with you, I stay away from politics, I stay away from religion, and I stay away from polarizing issues because for me personally, I have clients that are everything from different ethnicities to different religions to different political parties to different industries to like everything. And to me, I always say I equally hate everyone. From politics. From a politics standpoint, I am a registered independent because I equally hate everybody. And I make a joke about it, but it also makes people laugh, understanding that I am not going to sit here and take a stance that's going to affect a relationship. Because social media doesn't define a relationship. Who that person is defines your relationship with them. And I'm not willing to make that sacrifice because for me, it's more important to make people feel comfortable versus shoving my views down people's throats or feeling like I can do what I want to do and that's it. If you don't like it, too fucking bad, which you're going to turn around and say, hey, well, you said too fucking bad before about who you are. Yes, this is who I am. But there's certain just topics, and especially in this day and age, that incite a riot, literally and figuratively. And from a professional standpoint, my advice, which like I said, you're not going to always agree with what I say. It's sometimes better to stay neutral and keep it in neutral because it's going to allow you to maneuver more strategically to get what you need to get done. Sit on it. Think about it. So I'm not being, I'm not someone who's being, I'm not backtracking what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I don't believe in certain things. I vote. Absolutely. and I've gone to church and I have done that, I can talk about a lot of these subjects. I just choose not to talk about them on social media, both on my business standpoint, from my business, on my business social media, as well as my personal social media, because for me, I would rather have everyone feel comfortable and bring everyone in as a group and feel accepted as a group founders versus feeling like another side feels isolated. Because as much as I am very much a non-judgmental person, I am someone who you can pretty much tell me anything and I'm like, okay, cool. This is how I feel, great. I understand how you feel. We can agree to disagree. I'm okay with that. I've never felt that polarizing need, or I've never felt that need to kind of weigh myself or like sit on one side versus the other and just dig my feet into the sand. Now, if it's an ethical issue, I understand that. But when we start going into topics, I can always see all sides of the story and I can appreciate them. I can respect them. And that's where I don't think, for me personally, social media is a place for that. And also, my clients are on there. I am not about to lose clients that are great clients, that are respectable clients, that are professional and amazing people because we feel differently about something. It's not even a conversation. It's about how I produce their event and how I give them a return on investment and how I make sure that they are taken care of. And that's the most important thing. So sometimes people can't divide the two. Maybe you can, but most cannot. So it's better to just keep it clean. I always say I keep things PG. With my mouth, it's PG-13. But it's always PG. And if you keep that kind of rule of thumb, I think it just helps you in the long run of developing and building yourself in a way that allows you different expanded opportunities. Take it or leave it. So, number 6 is retaining long-term employment and client relationships. Well, this whole conversation kind of leads into that. But, because that's kind of what it is unfortunately in this day and age, people don't either stay in jobs for a long time. They're always looking for bigger, better, faster, instant gratification. And those long-term relationships aren't always as long-term anymore. So how do you flip the script to kind of keep them? So one of them is also, like I said, dealing with social media and also dealing with, presenting yourself in a way that you're always you're still that professional, you're middle of the road, keeping things in neutral, but also when shit goes left, not burning a bridge. Now, everybody that knows me personally and in my last 25 years in my career, I can guarantee they're rolling their eyes right now because I am a person that when I've been wronged and it's time to burn a bridge, I am not sitting there lighting a match. I am setting that motherfucker in a blaze of glory. It's going. There's not even going to be a piece of wood in sight left on that bridge, which is wrong. So I, too, am a work in progress because I would be sitting there on that bridge, toasting s'mores, and just loving life. I cannot do that, and I have learned not to do it. I still want to do it. I love it, and I love the reaction. I am not, listen, like I said, don't listen to me. Just ignore this part. But it's one of those things that I have learned in my old age that it is better because you just never know. And what had been really serious at that moment or really heartbreaking, years go by, those relationships, if that bridge isn't burned, they can be mended. And you just never know where you're going to cross that path with that person again, or where you're going to be, where, you need that help again. Or, you were on the way up and they're now on the way down and they ask you for help. And it's that true and that honest, genuine need for help where, they helped you sometimes. Like, relationships are not perfect. And time heals everything. And there's various levels of where you've been wronged. But it's also one of those things, too, where you want to take the high road. And that helps with client relationships. That helps, build a long-term, working relationship or employer-employee relationship. And it's just so critical. So, it's also one of those things where I've got another story for you. Karma's real. So even when someone's wronged you, they're going to get their karma. And for some reason, it could be 6 months, 6 years, 16 years. It will happen. There's nothing more that I believe in stronger. And I had this situation where I was in a 6-month contract. I was helping a company. And I was doing a really good job. I had saved them a few $100,000 in negotiated savings. I mean, I even worked with them on a discounted rate. And I came in there and I just cleaned up their event department. And I did it well and I did it fast. And when I do stuff like that, I, will always repeat this, but I have a very polarizing personality. But my intentions are always good. And when I go and clean up things and I push to get it done, as far as from an event perspective and a structural standpoint and a production standpoint, it's one of those things where the weakest link will always cry the loudest. So, when they do, if you have a superior or a manager or, whoever's hired you, they have your back and understand your value, that weakest link, you two will get on that same page and you'll course correct it. Course correcting it meaning, additional education, additional support, termination, whatever. There's a list of things. You obviously always want to be in a position where you can have them grow and have them see the light of day, as I like to call it. But sometimes they're still unwilling to do that. And if they are unwilling to do it, putting in a plan that you can get somebody in there who is more effective. So, fortunately, the person that was forced to hire me, we're going to call her Jamie because, like I said, great name. So Jamie was forced to hire me, female. She was the CMO, I guess was her title at that time, or CAO. She had a couple titles. And for me personally, I come from the world of being on my own for so long. When people ask me what my title is, I say, I'm a janitor. And they go, what do you mean you're a janitor? I said, well, I clean up the shit. So I don't care what you call me. I know who I am, and I know what I can do. I don't need a title to define me. What I do defines me. And that's part of development, is being able to define yourself in a way that you don't need something to speak for you. Everything will speak for itself. But I digress. As I went into this department, so we had the weakest link. She's complaining. Now the other one started to expand because she saw that she started to learn more in those 3 months than she ever had in years. She also learned that I was there to fight. And as much as I might be a pain in the ass and I'm a perfectionist and all these things that are happening, I'm teaching you how to do something in a way that you might have not been able to learn in previous jobs, because there might have been, or previous roles or with previous managers, because there might not have been someone so attention to detail or has done events on the scale that I've done them. I've worked globally. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I've headed event departments for North America. I have done the full gamut. I understand all perspectives of building, this department and understanding how it grows. So with that, she understood that I was there. I supported her. I had her back. And yes, I might be a little bit pushy with certain checklists and processes, but she quickly learned that those processes mitigate the fuck ups. So when you follow these processes, which seemed a little bit tedious at first, but once you got through them and understood and kind of made them part of your logistical plan, when you got on site and when you did all this stuff, things weren't, they were prepared. They were organized. It was planned. So when you're on site, you're on cruise control and just dealing with the normal day-to-day fire drills that happen that you're not expecting, like, I don't know, someone, cuts their hand and they need stitches and you got to deal with medical attention, or, there's a tech issue with audiovisual and because the internet went out because there's a thunderstorm, like things that are out of your control because you're now on cruise control dealing with all the other logistics because we went through this plan. But anyway, with that, she also understood too that I was there to not only teach her. My first questions were, what are your goals? How are you trying to develop yourself? Well, I'd like to get this designation, and I would like to do this. And, this other job I worked at, I was getting paid more, but, I had a life change, and now I'm here because I couldn't travel so much, but I'm getting paid less. So I sat down and said, okay, they're working with me. They're understanding this process. How can I support you? How can I help you develop yourself? Help you get those tools to succeed, which once again would ask for more money. I actually got them both raises. I got them on a plan where the company was paying for their educational support to get those designations that they wanted, even though the weakest link kept complaining. But because I started making these changes and building, it was one of those things where that CMO was jealous, which I honestly hate using that word, jealous, and maybe she was insecure. I don't know. The first thing, and I said this to her, Jamie, as we call her, I don't want your job. Absolutely don't want your job. I am not coming for your job. I have no desire to have your job. I could care less about your fucking job. I am here as a consultant. I'm that girl that comes in, cleans up, and moves along. I am someone that thrives off of new projects. I am someone that thrives off of challenges, and I also thrive off of quick turnarounds where we come in, we fix it, we see that result, we feel good about it, and when it starts running on cruise control because it's effective, it's logistically sound, it's strategic, it's mitigated all the damages and the liabilities, they're understanding how to negotiate a contract, we're good to go. My job is done. I'm good. And I feel good about it. And I move on to the next shit show. So with that, I would say that still wasn't enough. And she would say, I'm not a team player. To be honest with you, I'm a contractor. I'm not a team player. And I mean it in a way where I'm not a full-time employee. I'm here for a short term. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And that was fine. So long story short, apparently in her mind, I had, and I say in her mind, and also from her takeaway with this, because she would tell people this, that she was started to look for things that she could find that were wrong, like I cursed too much, or I said this, or I didn't go to this meeting, or I didn't do certain things. Mind you, all of my scope of work and all my tangible items that I needed to hit, I had already exceeded them in a way where this department was far more productive than it had ever been, of understanding budgets, understanding how to spend, understanding the right vendors, understanding accountability, understanding how to develop their conferences, creating more of a full sensory experience, an experiential experience where it's about creating an impact for their clients. What's your, my favorite question, what's your return on investment? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's start thinking about it. Are you getting new, members? Are you getting, new signups? Are you getting, brand exposure? Whatever it is, you're making money, building revenues, whatever the case is, whatever that is what they're basically, what we were trying to do. And we were succeeding with that. So, did that, succeeded, tangible items hit, CEO was paying attention to me. We'll call him James. So James was paying attention to me. Apparently she didn't like it. I have a 6-month contract. We have an event going on. In the middle of that, number 5, it was month number 5. Next thing you know, I have a meeting. And with this meeting, it's like, oh, we're going to have a meeting so-and-so Monday morning at 9 o'clock. If you ever have a meeting at 9 in the morning on a Monday, you're totally getting fired. Just saying. Prepare yourself. But anyway, with that, she has this meeting. Next thing you know, we're on a Zoom call, and she's on with HR. Now, let me go back to the point. I am a contractor, okay? So here I am laughing because I'm just like, I see her, Jamie, on the call with the HR person, and I'm just like, oh, here it comes. And we're on month 5. And being a contractor, I had a 30-day stipulation. All she had to say was, thank you for your service. Send an email. Thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure. We're not going to renew your contract for month 6. That's all she had to do. What she tried to do is embarrass me, tried to minimize my value, tried to demean me, doing all of this stuff. And I was, I just started laughing because the insecurity, the jealousy, the pettiness was just comical. So I looked at this and I said, well, in our contract, you have to say why. You have to cite a reason. And that was in our contract, which she kept saying, I don't need a reason. I don't need to. Actually, you did. Contractually, you absolutely needed a reason. But you know what? I'm going to let it go. So I said to her after I went back and forth, I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you 3 things. I said, because you're not going to answer. You're not saying anything. You're trying to use this. I'm not a full-time employee. You didn't have to go through this dog and pony show. You did this to try to prove a point, and it didn't work. So I'm going to tell you something. Number 1, for me to have a seat at this table as a woman, it does not mean that a seat has to be taken away, which is mistake number 1. Number 2, as much as the girls might have complained about me, I guarantee I have impacted their lives in a positive way, and they know deep down I've been supportive from a financial, educational, development side, and they have learned more in these last 5 months than they have ever learned anywhere else. And we'll look back on this situation and this experience saying, okay, maybe she was a bitch and she was a pain in the ass, but I respect her as a professional. I appreciate her, and probably will regret that they didn't use this opportunity more. And number 3, as much as your CAO, CMO, COO, whatever you kept titling yourself as, this was a privately held company by a man. And as much as he's given you all these responsibilities, he has never once given you 1/10 of a portion of this company, which would show your value and show your respect. So, as you are sitting here trying to demean me or feel like you're above me or try to use your power, you're actually powerless right now. And you are one breath, one heartbeat away from being just as disposable. And the look on her face, that shit hit home. And the crazy part is, not even a year later, she was fired. And I guarantee she probably thought of that fucking quote, and it's so great. And let me tell you, so going back to my bridge explosion, I was dying to text her. I was dying to text her to be like, one breath, one heartbeat, guess who's disposable now? But I restrained myself because you know what? I am not going to go dance on someone's grave, and I am not going to be that person, which is part of my development, because 15 years ago, I totally would text her. But it was one of those things where karma is real. Lessons will be learned. And for her, hopefully, this is a lesson where she learns how to develop herself and learns the mistakes that she made having the power that she had. Because it's not always about how you treat people on the way up. It's also about how you treat people on the way down. And that is such a critical thing. And that is about growing yourself as an individual, as a professional, as a woman, that you need to make sure that you take care of people that took care of you. And you don't always have to like them, but you have to respect them, respect their craft, respect their expertise, and understand that personalities don't always have everything to do with who they are as an individual or as a professional. So having the ability to disseminate between the two is such a critical thing. So that's my story time. So and I will say to this day, and if she's ever listening, Jamie, I know, but it's a humbling experience, and we've all been there, and we've all learned those lessons. It's not about what happens to you. It's about how you come out of it and how you grow as a woman and how you grow as an individual and how you expand in your own right. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and that's development. So anyway, so questions. A question came in from one of our founders, and it was pretty relevant to this lesson, which is, I feel overwhelmed with everything I need to do to develop myself. So how do I cope through it? Since I'm going on with old TV shows, one day at a time. So if you know that show, it's kind of the way to do it. I wish I had a magic potion. Developing yourself is a lifelong process. It is a challenging process. It's a process that's not always in one direction. And the more that you can just do what you need to do one day at a time, the more successful and sustainable those positive changes are going to be. So they're going to work in a way that they're going to grow on top of each other if you just kind of take those smaller steps, because those smaller steps lead to bigger steps, and they lead to even bigger steps after that, and they lead to bigger movements and bigger changes. So the more that you can just focus on the big picture, understand that there's multiple small steps that lead you to that bigger picture, the more you'll be willing to kind of release the stress and release the kind of ability to feel overwhelmed, scattered, anxious, stressed. And that's the best way to do it. Writing things down. It's one of those things where there's not a perfect answer to it, but just a perfect answer for you. And sometimes it's even adding in, if you feel overwhelmed, taking a walk outside, taking a minute, taking a breather, writing something down, putting things down as you're working on building your career or building, your next steps or your next phase of your life, and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to have lunch. I'm going to go watch a TV show for an hour that makes me laugh, or that just lets me escape so I can walk away and then revisit and come back to it and just, come back with a fresh set of eyes, or come back kind of a little bit, revived, where you're not just continuing to bang your head on the wall. Because I often will do that too, where I will try to get to a point where I feel as though I need to get, and I will be looking at it so closely that I'm not seeing the big picture, that I'm losing my focus on that big picture, and rather I'm just so in the weeds and so in the details that I'm not doing myself justice in getting this done in a way that's going to be productive. So sometimes, you got to stop. Sometimes you got to put stuff away for tomorrow, because that's all you could do for that day. But you did something, and that's all that matters. So, when you're overwhelmed, read your body, read the clue. Don't create more frustration. If you're frustrated, try something else. Read a book, take a chapter out. Whatever makes you happy, whatever kind of, allows you to kind of take your mind off of it for a short while and then come back to it, whether you're coming back to it the same day or coming back to it the next day. It's whatever it takes to kind of feel through it. And also, too, with that, if you kind of approach it in that manner, you can approach it in a way that you're going to build strength around it. And you're going to build more durability around how you handle things and how you maneuver through them. And practice takes, perfection. No, wait. Practice takes, what the hell? Practice takes perfect. Perfect takes practice. Why am I so blonde today? Anyway, practice. And that's what's going to get you to the next steps. So I think that's a really good, relevant question. Okay, so we've got our favorite Charlieism, and he's still here. He still says it. So it's not like I'm acting like it's in the past. No, he'll still say this. So Charlie's quote is, "You know what second place is? Second place is the first loser." I come up from a family that we don't believe in participation trophies. So if you're not first, you're last. I sound like Ricky Bobby too. So that is, I am a child of an entrepreneur. With that, I'm an East Coaster, Northeast Coaster, I should say, that competition is a very steadfast thing. Being the best at your skill, at your craft, at your profession is a very, very prominent thing. So we were raised that way, and it's kind of a funny way of saying that because it really is. A lot of times there's only one position, one job, one opportunity for that special opportunity that you're looking for. So you want to come in there, backing yourself up, guns a-blazing, ready to go. You've done the research, you've done the work. And listen, sometimes you don't get it because whatever job situation that was, that you wanted wasn't meant for you. But you've built up those skills and those tools that one that is meant for you, you're so much more prepared for. And it's a great lesson. Any work that you do, it's never going to waste. Any education that you teach yourself, that you learn, that, any knowledge that you are learning, there's never a waste. It never goes to waste, and it will always have you grow as a person. So even if the steps don't go in the direction that you thought they were going to go, it's not a waste. And you are developing yourself. You're continuing to develop your skills. You're learning what you like, what you don't like. And it's pretty fucking fascinating, and it's pretty exciting. So that is our lesson, founders. So if you have more thoughts, questions, topics we need to discuss, feel free to send me a DM because, like I said, we're in it together at Finding Her the Show, or also go to our website at standinformation.com. And don't forget, founders, keep finding her. I'll see you next week.